Today's official name is the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, but it's commonly called Holy Cross Day, and for good reason. Whereas other religions use something beautiful, like a bowl of chrysanthemums or a lit candle, as the focus of meditation, Christianity uses an object of torture and death, namely the cross. But in a world where violence is so often exalted and even celebrated, to set aside a day to exalt this instrument of execution seems particularly perverse. So much so that we've tried to sanitize and even sentimentalize the cross. We've made it into beautiful jewelry, or removed the tortured figure from it, or shown it as a throne with a king robed in imperial finery hung on it. 40 years ago, the photographer Andres Serrano did the same. His photograph, Immersion, shows a crucifix suffused in a misty golden light against a red background. It's almost like looking at a crucifix through one of those filters they used in old Hollywood movies. The trouble is, the photograph has a subtitle by which it has come to be known: Piss Christ. That's because it's a picture of a crucifix suspended in a jar of the artist's own urine. Predictably, the reaction to this was, and is, outrage. It was called filthy, blasphemous, and provocative. I agree with the last one. It is provocative. And it's meant to be. Something the poet Andrew Hudgens reflected on when he said that if we didn't know what the crucifix was suspended in, we would say it was too beautiful. And it was the resurrection, glory, Christ transformed to light by light. Which, he says, is the point, because the photograph shows the whole irreducible point of the faith: God thrown in waste, submerged and shining. We have grown used to beauty without horror. We have grown used to useless beauty. Now, let's leave aside the words of the poet and turn to those of Jesus, who says, "And just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up." Why? Because violence is the solution? That's certainly been the response of many, too many, folks who've ostensibly been followers of Jesus. Our sacred history is blood-stained with shameful stories of crusades, inquisitions, pogroms, holocausts, and lynchings. But not anymore, or so we think. Because it's become increasingly clear that the security and stability of our post-war, post-modern society is nothing but a palimpsest. The chaos and violence and blood we've tried to cover up continues to seep through. Like Macbeth, we are in blood steeped in so far that it seems the only way to move forward is through more and more violence. Which is why Charlie Kirk's killing, while despicable, was hardly shocking. It should have been. Except violence, especially gun violence, has become the currency of our time. Which is why we must repudiate it. And not just physical violence, but rhetorical violence too. Especially since inflammatory speech gives rise to actual brutality. This is why I'm troubled by the idea of the exaltation of the cross, particularly if it's thought to show how violence and cruelty can be used as a means of achieving political and religious ends. And I'm even more troubled by how the cross, an instrument of capital punishment, has come to be the object of our devotion. It wasn't always, mind you. To the first Christians, the cross was a scandal, since it represented death, shame, and defeat. It was an offense, which might explain why the earliest depictions of it were anastatic, that is, empty. But as the Christian community became more violent and first engaged in and then justified war, it began to show Jesus on the cross, and in increasingly bloody ways. And then the crucifixion began to be seen as a penal punishment paid by Jesus on humanity's behalf to a vengeful God, for only this gruesome death could make us worthy to inherit God's eternal kingdom. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Jesus spoke very little about the life that is to come. He said quite a lot about the life that is now, though. He talked at length about how we're here to make this world more godly, more like what he called the kingdom. Yet we're at a point where Christian theology is almost exclusively focused on the life of the world to come. People often ask me if Christianity is true, by which they mean, is all the stuff about heaven and eternal life true? I don't know, and neither do you. Yet I unashamedly say that Christianity is true, because it's undeniably true that speaking out against the powers is a risky business and likely to put you at danger. Just as it's true that the way we deal with people we disagree with and who say things we don't like is to do them violence, be it physical, emotional, or spiritual. But we don't want to hear that. We prefer the me and my Jesus kind of religion. We like the notion that Jesus vicariously suffered so we don't need to. We need a religion of escapism because a religion of reality is just too dangerous. Which is exactly what Serrano was trying to point out in his photograph. We've become used to beauty without horror. And the more we try to beautify and normalize and even valorize the cross, the more we cheapen and soil it. Not for us, a bowl of chrysanthemums or a flickering candle, but an instrument of capital punishment. You see, the exaltation of the cross is the problem. Shouldn't we be more concerned with the shame of the cross and even repudiate it? Which doesn't mean we should repudiate the one who was nailed to it. Far from it. We must embrace him because the antidote to our savagery and fanaticism is found only in him and in the way he answered hatred with love, intolerance with compassion, and betrayal with forgiveness. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And we don't. Because if we did, we'd learn to speak tenderly to one another and truly seek peace. We'd learn that violence is nothing to be glorified, be it by Hollywood, politicians, or you and me. We'd learn that it can't save us. But he can save us. not by dying for us, but by living in us, by showing us how God's forgiveness empowers us to transform filth into glory and beat swords into plowshares, by even being exalted on the brutal, bloody cross on which our deadly hate was redeemed by his undying love.